announce it, and then there's a maybe slot there. So if like someone really, really wants to go and there's no room, just talk to Carson about it. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Trevor. I'm from Dartmouth and Halifax, kind of up. I am an indie dev. My day job is as a full stack software developer, but in my spare time I like to do indie dev, and I do like pixel art, kind of like retro inspired games. The game that I've been working on for the past 4 years now is called Superstar Strategy. It's a game, it's a turn-based tactical RPG, kind of inspired by games like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics. And as of like this month, I'm basically done the game. So that doesn't mean it's out yet. It just means like the content is done. There's some stuff I want to do. I want to get into like the marketing cycle and stuff like that before I release. But figured I'd take this chance to talk about like how I got here and how long it took and the journey, because I know some of you I've met before, some of you are new faces. I just wanted to show off what the game is and where it came from, because I think a lot of you, even when I met you, this game was already pretty far into development, so it maybe looked nicer than you might have expected, but it's because I've been doing a lot of work on this kind of thing for quite a while, so it definitely didn't come out of nowhere. So let's get started. So I started working on like concepts for this game all the way back in like 2017, back when I was a student for programming at NSCC back around like 2012, 2013. I had an object-oriented programming class where we kind of worked with X and A to make a game for one of our class projects. And then I always wanted to make games ever since I was a little kid. I even did stuff in like RPG Maker and stuff when I was a kid, and other stuff. But about 5 years after my schooling, when I was like into my career, I decided I wanted to actually like be serious and like actually make something. And so I wanted to make a game that was like Fire Emblem, but also kind of like at the time I was really big into Warhammer 40k, the tabletop game. So I wanted to do something. One of the things I really loved about Warhammer 40k is that you kind of build your own custom army, and then you can customize it and then play against other people at like your local shop with like custom terrain and stuff like that, and just have a good time rolling dice. But I didn't really like the dice rolling part. It's too random. But here is a prototype that I made when I was exploring Monogame, which is an open source continuation of XNA, which is what I used back when I was in school. And here I just like straight up ripped Fire Emblem sprites from like, I think it was Awakening or something. And then there's like RPG Maker like assets in the background and stuff. And that's where I kind of like got used to like, how do I make a UI and how do I make like a game loop and stuff like that, because I didn't really have any concept of that. And I wasn't using an engine like Unity or anything like that. Back then there weren't a lot of options. It was basically Unity or Unreal or roll your own. So this is kind of the approach that I did. Then I wanted to turn this into like more of an original game instead of just like a sprite rip thing, less of an exploration and more of a real thing. And so I started prototyping like the game design using some Dungeons and Dragons stuff and some dice from Warhammer and some models from a game called Super Dungeon Explorer, which is like a board game that has like really cute models. And I prototyped like some ideas and ran them with my friends to see if the game kind of functioned. And that kind of turned into what was my original project, which is Soul Standard, which was kind of the culmination of like me wanting to make something original and also doing something with like Monogame. So after about a year of development, I released this game. The game was intended to be entirely like PvP, but I did add a couple of single player maps and stuff with some rudimentary AI. Just for like if you wanted to play by yourself. After that, I started working on this project, which is originally called Super Soul Standard. It was intended to be a sequel, kind of, to Soul Standard, but the idea was after I worked on Soul Standard, I had another game that was like an action hack and slash kind of Zelda, like Smash Bros. Cross kind of thing. And that game, even though it wasn't a menu-driven game, had way better menus and like just general coding architecture than my game that was literally driven on menus. And so I wanted to, originally the intention was just to remake Soul Standard in that new like architecture and stuff to make it work. But then scope ballooned like crazy. Originally it was intended to be PvP focused and stuff, like here you can see some PvP footage here and an earlier version of the game. And I kind of just kept showing this to friends, and my friends kept telling me, this is really good, but you know, I don't know if I'd take the time to learn this to play with somebody else and like have them learn it and then have like both of us like develop like the level of knowledge needed to play this thing. But I'd really love to play this like by myself and just like play like a campaign kind of thing. And for a while, I kind of pushed off that idea for a while until I realized, you know what? Screw it. Yeah, let's do it. And that was my first mistake. So after about 3 years of development since then, I've eventually developed the game into what its current incarnation is, which is Superstar Strategy. I renamed the game about a year or so ago, and it's available to Wishlist on Steam, but basically a ton of polish and a ton of content has been added to this game since like my earlier prototypes. And as I mentioned, like I'm now content complete. So originally I renamed the game to make it more searchable on Steam, and then Sega decided to release a game called Sonic Superstars, which absolutely destroyed my SEO for Steam. But I decided to build an entire campaign for the game. I did original art. I did not all of the art is original, but a significant amount of it is. Original music. I developed like a custom cutscene system and cutscene editor tool and all sorts of stuff. And I ended up developing 3 different versions of the campaign that I ended up scrapping over and over again until I finally landed on the current version. But I'm pretty happy with the way it is now. So now that my game is done, the idea is to start the marketing cycle. So now I'm like working on developing content or recording footage. I'm going to show some footage after this in case you're not familiar with the game while I take questions and stuff. But basically I'm going to be next working on the console port. I intend to port to Nintendo Switch. I'm not sure about other consoles yet, but at least the Switch. This game is a very Nintendo-inspired kind of aesthetic, and I intend to support like all sorts of controllers and stuff. And this thing can be played with a single Joy-Con. So I really want to make sure that this is playable and functional on the Switch. And I'm going to take a break and do something else for a little bit because I've been working on this game for 4 years, and I'd like to maybe just focus on like music or pixel art for a little bit. And then I'm going to get back to my action hack and slash kind of game and try to finish that up and get that ready for as well. And when I'm finally done my backlog of my current work, I intend to probably do something new, maybe in 3D with Godot. Yeah, if you're interested in checking out the game, there's a QR code there for that. If you don't catch it in time before the end of this, I can put it back and you can check it out later. So I will play this video on in the background with some footage and leave it up. Let's not blast everyone's ears. That.
I like the dog.
Thank you.
Good dog.
I also like the dog. So I'm going to leave that on in the background and open it up to questions or comments.
Hi, first of all, congrats, that's amazing.
Thank you.
I will definitely wish this.
Thank you.
So I was wondering, like, I think my main challenge, the challenge of a lot of developers, is finding the focus to just stay on one game for a long time.
Yeah, it's hard.
How did you do it? Like,
A lot of discipline. Like a lot of discipline. And actually, I haven't even followed that because, like I said, I have another game that I haven't finished. But I'm trying never to go beyond 2 things. 2 things I think is enough for me to get, especially because they're 2 different genres of games. It gives me enough variety that I don't get burned out too much, like completely focusing on one thing. And it also helps to come to meetups like these where I get to get feedback, and I have testers as well that I send builds to, and they give me feedback on the game and stuff like that. Having someone to be held accountable to helps me a lot. Like having someone to show like progress on this thing is a huge motivator for me. When this meetup started, it was the biggest kick in my ass to like actually like finish this thing like pretty significantly. So yeah, that's the main thing for me.
yeah, and if you don't mind a follow-up, I'm also wondering, like, how did you like decide that this is the game you want to commit to and work on for years?
Right. So as I mentioned, the first prototype was from very, very long ago, and I hate leaving things unfinished, just generally. This is a concept that I've always wanted to be realized ever since like I was pretty young, and so yeah, I guess I really wanted it to exist, and I didn't see anyone else really doing this. The closest analog to this that I've seen is a game called Wargroove, but that game, while it has a similar aesthetic and like it's bright pixel art and like strategy game, it's more Advance Wars style. It's more of an Advance Wars style kind of game rather than like a Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics kind of thing. And I really wanted to develop a game that was like balanced around like player versus player stuff, but could also be played in a single player fashion. So nobody I saw was really doing that, and so I wanted that to exist. So that's what I pushed for. Thank you.
I'm curious, how did you do the art, the animation and the pixelated art? Do you
Yeah,
draw them yourself, or?
Like I said before, some of this is asset stuff that I've purchased, but also a lot of it is original. Like I've done all the character portraits, I've done a lot of the animations, but not every single one. I've done a lot of the humans, but not necessarily. Like I didn't do the goblin, but I've done like a heavy edit. I use a program called Sprite, which is a great piece of software. I use it for even non-pixel art stuff, but it's intended for pixel artwork. You can do some really cool stuff with it where you can. What I do is I work with this system, so it has like a layer system and also a tagging system. So if I
Like, do you hand animate?
so with pixel art, yeah, you basically have to hand animate. Like there's not really like tweening is not really viable in pixel art because it looks like absolute garbage when you try to do that stuff. So a lot of this stuff is individual. Let me make this bigger. It's hard. I'm not used to a touchpad.
I've never heard of this. What's the program name?
Sprite, ASEPRITE.
Right.
Yeah, so you can work in different layers, you can add animation frames and stuff, and here there's also these tags that you can use, and these are what I use in the game to look up like different animations and stuff, and you can create animations. Like for this portrait, I just have like a bunch of like mouth flapping, like talking animations with different like expressions and stuff. So that's mainly how I handle that stuff, but it works for any of the other sprites as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah, thanks. Yep.
Do you still have the level where the dog has to free everyone from prison?
I do, yes, that is my favorite level in the game. That's this level here. It's a very non-linear map where you kind of like rescue different units in your army and stuff. And you can kind of, it's an escape map, so you try to get everybody and get it out. It's kind of inspired by a classic Fire Emblem map. I think it's from Thracia 776 or something, where you kind of like, your party members can be killed or captured or something, and then you have to go and free them. It's kind of inspired by that. Yeah. Yep.
To add on the art question, I was wondering how did it feel to both be have a technical brain while working on this and an artist brain while working on this?
For me, that's really fulfilling. I've always liked working in like a lot of different like mediums and stuff. Ever since I got out of like public school and I've been like hard focused on like my career and stuff, I've kind of missed being able to do things in other mediums like music and art and stuff like that. So this game dev itself is a great like medium for me to express myself in a lot of different ways. And so for me, I just like working in everything. So yeah. Yeah. And this will be probably the last one because I'm out of time.
Tell us about how you made the music.
The music, I use a program called Renoise, which is like it's a digital audio workstation that's kind of crossed with like a tracker interface. So if you're familiar with like FamiTracker and stuff like that. I don't really have any of those projects actually on my computer right now, I don't think, so I can't really show you. But basically, I use that, and then I use a virtual sound instrument called Super Audio Cart, which is an expensive but very, very good VST that lets you emulate sounds and sample sounds from like Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Genesis, Commodore 64, and stuff like that. And you can add like layers and effects and stuff to it, and then kind of like create your own custom instruments, and then you can run those in the tracker DAW, and then kind of combine them all. I am not as practiced at music as I am with like art and programming, especially programming. So it's a much slower process for me to work on music because I don't have like I haven't built the muscles for that yet. But when I go on my break, like I mentioned, like one of the things I want to do is kind of like focus on like just making music for a little bit, so I can build that muscle a bit more, make it a bit faster for my workload, because right now it takes me like several days to like finish a single song. But I'd like to get better at that. All right, I think I'm out of time, but thank you very much.